It's Eve of Thanksgiving. I want to remind everybody that yes, we will meet on Thanksgiving. We meet and study Torah 365 days a year. Every day we study Torah. We don't take a day off from Torah. That's why it's called the Daf Yomi. It's every single day, Elon. That's why it's called Yomi. We don't take a chance. We don't take, and tomorrow morning we'll do, the only difference is we'll start davening at 8 a.m. So maybe that won't be too early for people here, 8 a.m. And then we'll do the Daf Yomi afterwards, but the Rashi study will be at 4:30. And on this Thanksgiving Eve, wanted to say to everybody how grateful and thankful I am to you to be studying with you. So chapter 27, verse 19. So chapter 27.
It's 19.
Yeah. We were discussing this yesterday, that Esav, that Rashi doesn't want to say that Jacob lied. It says, Vayomer Yaakov, Anochi Esav v'chorecha. Jacob says, when he walks into his father, Jacob says to his father, I am Esav, your firstborn. I did that which you spoke to me. Kumna, arise. Sheva va'achal mitzidi, get up and eat from my game. Bavor tevarchani nafshecha, so that your soul may be blessed. And Rashi is uncomfortable with Jacob lying. He says, I am Esav, your firstborn. He doesn't want to say that Esav is a liar, so he says, Anochi hamevi, I'm the one who's bringing it to you, and Esav is your firstborn. So therefore, Jacob is not lying. I have a very big difficulty with that, because to my mind, the lie is not just in the words you say, but the context and the way you say it. And therefore, for this reason, if you create a situation where the listener's impression is one thing, that's kind of like lying, even though you didn't actually say a false word. I'll tell you a story. Our YouTube channel has now close to 750 followers. So it's very, very small. And, usually 4 or 5 people or maybe 10, 20, who knows how many, but we're not getting millions. We're not Mr. Beast. So I can tell you this story, even though it has to do with a Supreme Court justice and me, and I'm not worried that it's going to go viral. So basically, a few years ago, there was a terrible, terrible piece written, hello, Aviva, hello, Mordechai. A few years ago, there was a terrible, terrible piece written in the New York Times Magazine by a professor of law at Harvard named Noah Feldman. I don't know if you know who Noah Feldman is. And Noah Feldman wrote this piece about he said he went to this modern Orthodox school called Maimonides, which is a school in Boston. And he said that he went there with his intermarried wife, she was Asian. You remember the article?
I do. But
yeah. So he said he went there with his, and they presented themselves as an open, welcoming institution. And he went there with his non-Jewish wife, and then he received a picture from the reunion. And he went there to a reunion, and he saw that she was not in the picture. So he made it sound. Almost everyone who read the article came away with the impression that Maimonides, which professes itself to be a very warm and welcoming school, had photoshopped his fiance or wife out of the picture because she did not represent the values of the school, because she was not Jewish. And he said, this is what they are. On the one hand, they claim to be welcoming. On the other hand, they cut me out of the picture. And it was a tremendous Chil Hashem. But then Maimonides said, we didn't cut you out of the picture. We didn't cut you out of the picture. We took hundreds of pictures that day, and we used a different picture. You don't have to include the spouses in the picture of the alumni of the school, especially when they don't go to the school. So he gave off the impression by writing the article that Maimonides, he didn't actually say, so then people said to the New York Times, run a correction. They said, no, he didn't say that they cut her out. He just created that impression. And so therefore it's not a mistake, which to my mind was very, very disappointing, because if you can manipulate the words in such a way as you're not exactly lying, but you create a false impression, that to my mind is a lie. Like Jacob here says, I am Esav, your firstborn. I am. Esav is your firstborn. Come on, who are you kidding? So I was very, very disappointed. And then I thought to myself, how could it be that this man is a professor of law, teaching people who are stewards of the law, the guardians of the law at the most elite university in the world, the most elite law school in the world, the best law school, teaching them that it's okay to create a false impression and to present these falsehoods, as long as you're not technically uttering the words that are a lie, but you could create the impression that's false. So I said to myself, what kind of message is this, that this is the professor? How would you feel like if your students who are lawyers are creating false impressions without actually lying? Is that a good way to raise the next generation of lawyers? So I took it upon myself to write a letter to the dean of the law school and said, how is this acceptable in your law school? How is this acceptable? Oh, did I get a response? The dean at that time was Elena Kagan, and she was so horrified that she was in Europe, and she called me up from Europe and spoke to me for around an hour, saying how disappointed she was in this article, and she was going to have a good talking with him.
Wow.
No, what I think was, and this is my impression of the situation, was that she was basically trying to manage me because she had her aspirations of being the Supreme Court justice, and she didn't want a controversy. She didn't want like a radical. She didn't. I don't know about that. I don't know anything about her other than that one conversation, and I think she didn't want some hothead rabbi protesting outside her office. But she called me up right away from Europe, and saying, and promised me she was going to talk to him. And anyway, I have never forgotten that, because a lie is not just and I'm curious to know what the perjury statute is that if you can be convicted of perjury, even though you don't actually say a false word, you just create that impression. No, that's not the point. My point is, what's the definition of a lie? Is it just uttering the wrong word, or is it creating the wrong impression?
So there was a president of the United States who's still alive, who was in the same situation.
Yeah.
Where he was under oath with Clinton, and the question was, did he have sex with that woman? And he said no. And later he said, well, sex has a certain definition which everybody doesn't share. Anyway, that was another.
Well, now that's there's a Talmudic definition of it, and right, whatever. So the point is,
I was sued for libel, and I found out the truth is not an ego.
for libel, no, of course not. Yeah, no, anyway. So okay, so anyway, we can move on to the next verse. Now that we've
Libel is when you lie about someone.
Yeah, in the United States, truth is a defense.
It depends, Dan. It depends on the situation. Sometimes truth is not a defense. Your opinion, anyway.
There's a case where
Let me just say that I've had to be, as like somebody who criticizes a lot of people, I had to be very careful a couple of times. I always consult with my attorneys, and it depends on the situation.
Well, there's a separate tort of invasion of privacy and disclosing publicly facts about a private person. That's a separate tort. But I'm pretty sure truth is a defense of lie.
Let's say your opinion is that this person, it depends if this person is, okay, you know far more about the law than I'm just saying, but let's say you want to accuse this person of being a terrorist, for example. In your opinion, they're a terrorist, and that damages their reputation. You could be still problematic, even though in your opinion, whatever. It's a little bit complicated. So I'm just saying, don't just take that. I mean, Dan is obviously knows the law, but before you start relying upon that to get out your bullhorn, you might want to consult further, is all I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying in general, yes, but still be careful.
Okay, so,
Is that fair to say, Dan?
Yeah.
so Jacob,
Rabbi, just before we start recording.
One of our patriots.
Oh, well, we recorded everything.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, it's recording. It's
Oh.
recording. No.
Terrible.
Maybe-
No, did Jacob do a terrible thing? Jacob had to do this. He had to do this, but I'm just saying Rashi's trying to defend Jacob from lying, but I just think it's a little tricky to say that. Yeah, Akiva.
Torah says Midbar Sheker Tircha, stay away from falsehoods. It doesn't say don't lie. So
Right.
there's definitely a falsehood that he wasn't staying away from.
Right. So it's a tricky situation. It's the real world. He had to get the job done. Like you wouldn't say if there's a Mossad agent who's going into, he's got to break into Iran to steal their nuclear codes, and they come at the airport and they say, "Who are you?" Is he justifying and lying to them and saying, or does he have to say, "I'm an Israeli Mossad agent"? Obviously, he's allowed to lie under those circumstances.
Nefesh,
Yeah.
for Yaakov. I mean, that's the question, right? I don't think it's a hard case at all with anything military or Mossad,
Right.
that's not even a borderline case.
Was this?
Well, you say it's not a borderline case, but that's not exactly accurate because when you put it the extreme example that I just said, it's clearly life and death situation. But lots of times you're not in that extreme life and death situation, but you're trying to create a persona which will be overall in an overarching manner beneficial to the society. So you're lying, but it's not directly. So I'm just saying it's tricky. Yeah.
Was this the same bracha that he bought from Esav?
No, what he got from Esav was the rights to the firstborn. Here, we're now looking for the blessing from Jacob.
So why does he say, "I
Isaac.
Esav your firstborn"?
Right, so that-
Something to do. with
Right, so
firstborn.
that's what we said yesterday, that maybe that's also a lie. He says Esav is your firstborn. Commentaries point out, but Esav is not your firstborn. I bought it. So that's also a little tricky situation. Anyway, let's go on to next verse. So
I
next-
just
yes.
wanted to say that like one of the American heritage stories is about George Washington telling his father that he can't tell a lie. My problem with that story is not about the lie. My problem with that story is that he chopped down a fruit tree, which is forbidden according to Parshat Shoftim.
Was that
So-
Washington or Lincoln who said I cannot tell
Washington.
lie? Lincoln was honest Abe also. Okay, so now
No, I'm just saying Washington. So all I'm saying is that the law in the Torah about not lying is specifically about monetary, as far as I understand it, and every other lie that the rabbis actually discussed. Is this a lie because of peaceful recognition? Like, even last week's 2 weeks ago, sorry, when Hashem told Abraham that Sarah said that she's too old instead of he's too old. Lies are part of our making, and they are justified because of these laws. So it's not that every lie is 100% wrong and punishable, etc.
I mean, so it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky. I would say that the presidents routinely lie to the American people. It's a dangerous slippery slope to start justifying lies for the greater good. Next thing you know, what did Yisro? These are the words I wrote today in the Torah. What did Yisro recommend to Moshe that he select as his? How are you doing, my friend? So what did he recommend that he? What did he recommend that he take as judges? Who did he recommend? What was the characteristic? He said Anshe Emet, men of truth, men of truth.
Oh, they were also supposed to be rich.
Anshe Chayil, men of courage. Anshe Emet, Stonei Betza, those who didn't take bribes. Well, here Isaac is taking a bribe. He says, "Bring me the food." No, not a joke. This is one of the criticisms. Why is he taking the bribe here?
It was to put him in a good mood when you're on the stage.
Right, so that you have to justify it. All right, let's do another verse. We did one verse so far. Let's do another pasuk. Chapter 27, verse 20. Vayomer Yitzchak el beno, and Isaac says to his son, "Ma'azeh miharto limtzo b'ni." How did you find this animal so quickly? Vayomer ki yikra Hashem elokecha lefanai. He said, God arranged it before me, which is also, you're never supposed to speak, because the more Jacob speaks, the more he is definitely revealing himself, because he's speaking like Jacob and not like Esav. And so Yitzchak says to Yaakov, Vayomer Yitzchak el Yaakov, Geshana, come close, Va'amushcha b'ni, I will feel you. Atah b'ni Esav imlo, are you my son Esav or not? So what does it mean? What does the Rashi here say? Such a beautiful thing. He says, Geshana v'amushcha, Amar Yitzchak b'libo, Isaac said in his heart, Ein derech Esav, it's not the practice of Esav to have the name of heaven fluent in his mouth. So, yeah, God, Hashem, your God has arranged it. We see from here a very powerful idea that the way of a Jacob is to always mention the name of Hashem. So that's why we should begin our conversation with saying Baruch Hashem. We should say,
What's the clear effort to say that Isaac was not fooled, he knew exactly what was going on. This is the way of telling us.
that's the question. That's the question that the text leaves ambiguous. Does Isaac really know? Does Isaac know and yet plays along? Or does he not know? And you can read the text.
Different personal experience in their lifetime where a father wouldn't know the difference in voices between the sons. I mean,
Well, if they're twins, they might be similar.
I didn't know.
They are twins.
He was elderly, his hearing.
They're not identical.
Didn't know the voice was different. His
Oh.
voice was.
Well, okay, so how could anybody pull this off?
Well, Rabbi Steinsaltz says he was faulty eyesight. Isaac was unable to tell his twins apart. He just declares it as a fact.
That's what Steinsaltz said.
Yeah, but Jeff but I see, Jeff, I think that with all due respect, I disagree that it is possible that the voice, you can make your voice sound like somebody else's voice. We see that all the time. You go, I saw the most incredible thing today on YouTube. Somebody said there's this, and I really recommend everybody watch this. There's this interview. Who's this guy? Let me look it up. Who's this guy? This venture capitalist person. His name was Reid Hoffman. You ever hear of him?
Sure.
So Reid Hoffman did an interview with Reid Hoffman. The AI version of Reid Hoffman interviews Reid Hoffman, like with the video, the image, and he defeated him. Like they asked him questions about Reid Hoffman himself, and the AI version was better than the real version.
The AI version had an instant recall. of
Instant,
everything.
better answers. So the point is, you could be fooled by the sound, but what you can't be fooled by is the soul. And that's why he was saying the answers didn't sound like Esav's answers, that the answers were different. Let me just stop here before we dive in. I want to update everybody because I know